Welcome to this Easter weekend edition of The Truth. I'm John Gordon. We're going to be talking President Trump's address to the nation about Iran earlier this week. He also, unprecedented, went to the Supreme Court during oral arguments on birthright citizenship. We're going to ask the question, why did Donald Trump fire Pam Bondi? Peter Schweizer's commenting on birthright citizenship as well. He's got some interesting insights to share with you. And if you thought fraud in California was bad, we just learned it got a whole lot worse. And then finally, Vice President Vance, I asked the question, is he going to become the Kamala Harris of fraud? She was the border czar. Is he going to be like her as the fraud czar? I don't think so. We'll let you know why later in the broadcast. For our guest today, we have Robert Bork Jr. You may remember his father was nominated to the Supreme Court. We're going to be talking about the Ticketmaster Live Nation case that is pending before the Supreme Court. Then we've got back Bruce de Torres. We're going to be talking about lies, fraud, JFK, 9/11, and COVID. And then Winton Hall, he's an author, managing editor and director of Breitbart News. He's also a principal at our friends at the Government Accountability Institute. We're going to be talking about his new book called Code Red, The Left, the Right, China, and the Race to Control AI. Well, welcome to The Truth. Today's episode, or today's broadcast and studio sponsor, is Bone Frog Coffee. We'll tell you all about Bone Frog in just a little bit. And today's broadcast was brought to you by Perfect Circle Renewable Energy. And we're just really glad that you're here with us today. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And like us if you do. And always, if you think we say something worth note, share it with your friends and relatives and neighbors. All right, so the Dow has been a very rocky ride for those of you who follow it. We've been down in the dumps for a month. We've come from way back here. It looks like the low was somewhere around the 30th of March, and we were just right at 45,000. I've got my savings mostly in the stock market. It has not been a fun month, but as I've said here before, it's okay with me. It's a paper loss right now today. Hopefully it can stay a paper loss. But President Trump, I think, courageously has gone in and done what no president before him has been willing or summoned the courage to do, and that is put a stop to Iran's state-sponsored terrorism and halt them once and for all from developing a nuclear weapon. Iran is not going quietly in the night, much to the chagrin of the president and the Americans and the stock market. President Trump did say earlier in the week that the war was going to be winding down in just a matter of days. And man, did we like that news, because the market took a big leap forward and got back over 46,000, almost to 47,000. It's still off the high of 50,000. The other indexes have a similar picture. But then President Trump went on television from the Oval Office or from the White House and addressed the nation on his plans for the war in Iran. Here's what he had to say.
Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them, terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. This fanatical regime has been chanting death to America, death to Israel for 47 years. Their proxies were behind the murder of 241 Americans in the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, the slaughter of hundreds of our service members with roadside bombs. They were involved in the attack on the USS Cole, and they carried out the countless other heinous acts, including the just horrible, bloody atrocities of October 7th in Israel, something that most people have never seen anything like it. This murderous regime also recently killed 45,000 of their own people who were protesting in Iran. 45,000 dead. For these terrorists to have nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat.
So how can the Democrats even stand in front of the American people and say anything that is not totally supportive of President Trump? I mean, just imagine if we had 45,000 of our citizens die in the United States at the hand of our government because they didn't want us to engage in free speech. I mean, the nation would be absolutely in revolt if that happened. But the fact of the matter is that this is several thousand miles away. We feel disconnected from that. But you wouldn't feel disconnected from it if that was your family member, if it was in your backyard. And then the other atrocities that President Trump discussed, one that he left out was when they attacked an embassy of a foreign country in Buenos Aires a number of years ago and killed a whole bunch of people there. So the terrorist attacks have not been limited to the United States. They have included a lot of people around the globe, including October the 17th in Israel, as President Trump alluded to. So I support what the president is doing. It has caused me to have a pretty big loss on paper. It's couldn't come at a worse time for me personally, based on my personal financial picture, but that's not important. And so I'm not making it about me at all. I'm just saying, if you are in a similar position, just do what you can to ride it out, because the prize at the end is well worth it. And I'll say it again, I just so commend President Trump for having the courage to do this. It is coming at a political cost to him and to Republicans. I'm hoping that he will be able to bring it to an end over the next 2 to 3 weeks, as he has now promised, and we can get back to a place of normalcy around the globe and peace and prosperity. I'm not ashamed to say that, and I don't think that you are either, because the fact of the matter is, you may remember last weekend we put on a clip of Tom Nash, and he related the importance of the price of oil to all Americans, and explained the relationship between the price of oil and inflation. And so that is the one place that Iran feels like they've got us over an oil barrel, and that is the Straits of Hormuz, which President Trump says he doesn't have to have the straits opened in order to settle with Iran. Well, I think that was a direct dig at the EU, because, you know, they have not joined the party. That's in quotation marks. That's probably a poor choice of words. They have not come to our aid in fighting this battle. And that makes me upset, because we have protected them for decades, and we saved them in World War II. And their memories are short. They're playing politics within their own country. France has a large Muslim population, and so that definitely taints the judgment of its leaders. But that's a poor excuse for not doing the right thing. And I think that's frustrating to President Trump. It's disappointing to me. That's what he was saying. He was saying, look, if you don't want to come and be a part of this, then we're not going to open the Straits of Hormuz, because the United States today is the world's largest producer of oil. Surprise! What a wonderful statement to be able to make. More than Iran, more than Saudi Arabia. And so we don't really need Iran's oil. Now, I've said before, and I'll repeat it again, if we really want to hit Iran where it hurts, right now they supply 20% of the world's oil. I would just make them irrelevant. The United States, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, other oil producing countries around the world could just increase their production by 2 or 3%. And within a matter of weeks or a few months, we wouldn't need Iran's oil. And everybody could just quit buying it. It would not take long to shut the hose off. Their financial resources would disappear overnight, and they wouldn't be able to support terrorism. They wouldn't be able to develop a nuclear weapon. And they would probably learn in pretty short order that they better get the Straits of Hormuz opened back up, or else they're going to feel the pinch economically. I think that's the best strategy that we've got. That's the war I would urge President Trump and our allies to have. Just don't buy oil from Iran. They would become insignificant overnight. Well, I'm so proud of everything that President Trump does. You know, he is the hardest working president of my lifetime. He is all over the creation. And earlier this week, he went and sat in the chambers of the Supreme Court as they heard oral arguments on birthright citizenship. Now, of course, the Democrats said, oh, that was just an act of bullying them. But it was really a symbolic act that President Trump and the American people want them to get this right. I think President Trump has correctly pointed out that the amendment to the U.S. Constitution, providing that people that are naturally born in the United States automatically become citizens, that was done in the 1860s, and it was directly related to slaves and their children being able to be natural born citizens in the United States. It really should not apply to people born in the United States necessarily today of illegal immigrants. Here's what President Trump had to say about that at the White House earlier this week.
Attorney General Pam, my friend, Pam Bondi. Hi, Pam. And we just left the Supreme Court. I didn't realize it's the first time in history that a president went to the Supreme Court. I was really surprised to hear that. And Supreme Court's not been acting very well, actually. It was today on Birthright Citizenship. How did it finish up? Who knows, right? That's the problem. You never know. You know with the Democrats, because a Democrat appointment always votes, no matter what. You could have the greatest case in history. You could have a case where the person you're suing admits they're guilty. And if you're in front of a Democrat judge, she'll overturn that admittance. Now, it's very unfair. And Republicans, judges, and justices, they always want to show that they're independent. I don't care if Trump appointed me. I don't care. If it doesn't make any difference to me, I'm voting against him because they want to show their independence. Stupid people.
Well, those are pretty harsh words, pretty much directly pointed, probably at Amy Coney Barrett, who has been one of those people that seems to be particularly defiant. And I think President Trump went so that he could just stare them in the eye and remind them where they got their job from. There's nothing he can do about it. What he can do about it is use the bully pulpit. And that is exactly what he is doing. Now, here's why the birthright issue is very critical. And I know we have a smart audience on The Truth. We come to you on the John Fredericks Media Network. We're also on the CDM.press network. We also live stream on Getter, Rumble, YouTube and Facebook. You can go there and interact with us right now on Getter, where we'll have several thousand people by the end of this broadcast that join us, and you can tell me how brilliant I am, or you can tell me what a dumbass I am. Either way, I just like to hear from you. And our listeners can always feel free to email me at johngordontruth@gmail.com. I really appreciate the emails. I do read them, and most of the time I answer. I'm a little behind right now, but I'm going to spend a little time later today, in fact, getting caught up on responding to your emails. Keep them coming. And we are the truth, so it's very important to me that I honor my commitment to you, which means responding to your emails. I'm behind, but I'm going to catch up. All right, so now, why is this birthright thing so important, and why is it vital to our national interest? You may recall a couple of weeks ago we had Peter Schweizer on The Truth. He came and sat right across the room from where I'm sitting now in our new studio, which is brought to you by Bone Frog Coffee. And we had a wonderful conversation. He is one smart guy, and you know the reason I like him? He's big time. He's important. He has authored 23 books. He's genius. And he's just so plain down to earth and real. And everybody I encounter from the Government Accountability Institute, I could say that about. And we're going to be talking to Winton Hall, who works at the Government Accountability Institute, later in the broadcast. And he falls into that category too. They're all just so real and down to earth. I really appreciate that. But all right, listen to Peter Schweizer and what he said about why this is vital to our national interest.
The Chinese Communist Party about 12, 13 years ago started explaining to the Chinese elite in the People's Daily, in official publications, hey, guess what? Your kids can get U.S. citizenship if you do this. And a massive industry was born. There are now more than 1,000 companies in China that advertise openly in that country that say, hey, pay us, say, $80,000. We will get you into the United States, get that birth certificate when your child is born, and we will fly you and the child back when the child is able to fly a few days later. So it is a massive effort. It is an organized effort. These are members of the Chinese elite, and the numbers are mind-boggling. The Solicitor General, gave these figures in the Supreme Court. Those are numbers from my book. The belief is that there's between 1 million and 1.5 million Chinese nationals that are, quote-unquote, U.S. citizens being raised in China right now. That means they're going to be able to vote when they turn 18 years old, and they're going to have a whole bunch of other rights. And when they turn 21, Jesse, they can sponsor their parents and other family members to get permanent resident status in the United States.
Yeah, and they can work for defense contractors. They could work for the government. They could conduct all sorts of sabotage and espionage. The Mexican factor. We've seen this. Waves come in, they have a baby, they work, but they're on welfare. Their children start voting. This is being abused this way from the South as well.
100%. And the Democrats did a study in the 1990s, found 85% of new immigrants, when they get the opportunity to vote Democratic. It is the most reliable voting bloc for Democrats. That's why they do this out of political necessity.
I think that's absolutely staggering, hair-raising, disturbing, alarming, all the above. I mean, think about it. They come here, they give birth, they live here a few months, the CCP pays for them to fly back home. So these children, Peter Schweizer, you just heard it, 1 million to 1.5 million, then have citizenship in our country, which means 18, 20 years from now, those same individuals, and God only knows how many other children the parents will come here to give birth, will go back to China, where they're educated and indoctrinated in the Communist China Party dogma, and then they're free to move back here with U.S. passports when they're military aged and have been indoctrinated and brainwashed to hate America. Now, that would not be so, I mean, that's disturbing enough in and of itself. But when you overlay that with the fact that the CCP has publicly stated that they intend to dominate the world in 2049, it is alarming. It is scary. And these weak-kneed justices on the Supreme Court damn well better decide which country they're going to serve. Is it the United States of America, or is it China, or is it Mexico? Because we have a democracy in this country, but it's not for foreigners to come here, take advantage of a loophole, go back to their country of origin, excuse me, to be educated, pollen is everywhere, to be educated so that 15 or 20 years later they can come back here and potentially harm us. That, I did not fully understand the topic and the issue of birthright citizenship until President Trump laid it out for all of us. And like all the time, every time I've differed with him, and that's why I stopped. I just don't nitpick with him anymore, which I love to do because I wanted to show my independence. But damned if he's not right 99.9% of the time. But you know, I don't know whether he listens to our broadcast or not. I doubt it. But I do know that some of his people do. And thank you for that. I appreciate it. And you know, and his people know, that I have been outspoken about my disappointment with both Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. They promised us the moon and they've given us, I can't say it on the radio. They have not delivered on their promises. How about that? It's Easter Sunday. Let's be polite. Easter Sunday weekend. But it's true. And I stopped short of calling for her removal. I actually have preferred if Kash Patel had been removed, because I just don't understand, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. These people come in as truth tellers. They basically campaign for the office as truth tellers. And within a week, they have learned how to speak like bureaucrats. And it's really disappointing to me, and I think it's kind of disgusting if you want to know my honest opinion on it. President Trump does not. Thank you, Mr. President. He has not taken the course in how to speak like a bureaucrat, but damned if Kash Patel hadn't. And I'm pretty mad about it. I'm pretty mad about the fact that Pam Bondi had the Epstein files on her desk and the charade that she went through. I mean, Susie Wiles said in a very rare interview, I don't think she talks to the press on the record very much at all, and probably less so now than she did before. But you know, that article came out a couple of months ago where she made some statements that really got the attention of the national media, one of which was Pam Bondi whiffed on the Epstein files. Now, I'll tell you, if President Trump is the commander-in-chief, don't think for a minute that J.D. Vance is number two. I've seen the Trump organization up close and personal. Susie Wiles probably has more influence and wields more power inside the White House than J.D. Vance does. And I think that's just a reality. So I think that when Susie Wiles said that Pam Bondi had whiffed on the Epstein files, that was very foreboding. And we saw it played out this week. Do we have a clip, Anthony? Roll clip.
We are getting brand new details from the White House. John Yoo joining us, jumping in on the news. Todd Blanche, John, set to become the interim AG. But all of this happening, interestingly enough, after yesterday we saw both of them, President Trump and Pam Bondi, at the Supreme Court to hear the oral arguments.
Excellent point, Sandra, about the timing, because maybe that's when Trump finally made up his mind, because it looked he had to leave that oral argument thinking that he's going to take a loss on what is one of his core central policy agendas and immigration. He just lost a tariff case at the Supreme Court a few weeks ago. And maybe after sitting in the courtroom watching how his attorney general was in charge of representing these positions that the Supreme Court was doing, he said, maybe we need a change. Maybe I was persuaded to take these risky cases up to the Supreme Court. And now that I see that we're on the lose, we've lost tariffs, we might very well lose on birthright citizenship, maybe I need to have different lawyers.
Well, I get that sentiment, but I think those cases are high risk. I don't know that the quality of the advocate for the government is the deciding point there. I think for me, it is a lack of transparency, and I think President Trump was frustrated with the deliberateness and how slow Pam Bondi has moved on a number of issues. I don't know how much of a role she's taking right now in the grand jury investigation into John Brennan. I think James Comey and John Clapper are going to get swept up into that, and maybe even Hillary Clinton. But they're looking into the Russia hoax, and specifically in Brennan's case, his having lied to Congress. I hope, and I don't know, I hope that Pam Bondi's firing has more to do with holding people in government accountable who have just done dastardly deeds against our country. People like Tim Walz in Minnesota, who has allowed fraud to be conducted underneath his nose. Was he involved in it? I don't know. Is he complicit? I don't know, but it certainly warrants a very close look, just like the fraud in California deserves a very close look. But I truly think, folks, I truly hope, and I guess I don't think, I suspect, that the American people's ever-growing frustration with the lack of accountability in government may have something to do with Pam Bondi's firing. I wish Matt Gaetz was the Attorney General. And, he was set up so bad and just raked over the coals, I think, very unfairly. But people sometimes who really tell the truth and have a constitution and are willing to fight make a lot of enemies. There's a lot of speculation that Gaetz was on the wrong side of Israel, and maybe they had something to do with his not being confirmed, or he never got to confirmation. He just withdrew his name because there was a pretty strong backlash against him. But the point I'm trying to make is that we need a damn fighter. We need a fighter as Attorney General. And we thought we had a fighter with Kash Patel. We thought we had a fighter with Dan Bongino. But there was an article that said that Bongino, that the FBI had to recruit 50 people from outside of Washington to guard Bongino while he was at his desk at the FBI. Now, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, I don't know what else does. But obviously, it's a very difficult job, and they're up against some very, I don't know how to categorize them. It's the deep state. Entrenched bureaucrats who are operating outside the bounds of the law and outside of our own U.S. Constitution is what I suspect is going on. And maybe the reality is that they're just in a very dangerous position and they can't move as fast as we want them to. Maybe they can't take the actions that we want them to because maybe they fear for their safety or the safety of their families. And I think it's very real. I mean, if you don't believe that, give me an explanation of what happened to Charlie Kirk. You still think Tyler Robinson did it? I've been telling you for months. In the immediate aftermath of Charlie's death, I said I did not believe the narrative on Tyler Robinson. I still maintain that. And now what did we find out this week? The ATF conducted ballistic tests with the bullet fragments, we're told, that they recovered from Charlie's body, and that there is not a conclusive match with the .30-06. Hello? And now they're telling us, oh, that doesn't really matter. It's just inconclusive. But what has happened in every murder case since we can remember, the first thing they do is link the bullet to the gun. Now, the FBI has decided that they're going to conduct the ballistics test. They think their laboratory is better than the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms laboratory in connecting bullets or assessing a bullet with the gun. Translation, the fix is about to be in. They're going to come back, mark my word, they'll find a little pinpoint prick and somehow relate it back to the .30-06. That's my prediction. And it's just a cover-up for the truth. Write your congressman right now. Sit down and write your congressman, please. And get your neighbors and your friends and your relatives and your parishioners to write letters to your congressman demanding truth, demanding accountability. How about we start with demanding an investigation, a real investigation? How about a third-party investigation into the death of Charlie Kirk? And how about a third-party investigation into the attempted assassination of President Trump in Butler? How about an apology from the CIA for assassinating John Fitzgerald Kennedy? What we need is a day of atonement in this country. We need the truth and the transparency. Because what do you get as a result? What do you get as a result of calling all of these questions conspiratorialist? It's just so stupid. And it's so worn out. The phrase is meaningless today because you have all these independent journalists like me saying BS. It's a way to suppress speech. It's a way to cover up. And it's just worn out. And so what is the result? People do not believe what government tells them. We don't trust government. We don't believe that Building 7 fell down because of gravity and a weakened foundation. We don't believe that Thomas Matthew Crooks, whose body was cremated 10 days after the attempted assassination, and the AGR building was wiped down within a couple of hours, hosed off. We saw it on national television. Whatever happened to preserving the crime scene? I'll tell you what I suspect. I don't think it was Thomas Matthew Crooks. I think they washed the DNA away because it was somebody else. I suspect Maxwell Urich, as our listeners know, he was named a person of interest immediately after the shots rang out and his van was towed. And now we haven't heard a thing about him since. And yet his parents filed a missing persons report the day after the attempted Butler assassination. And we don't believe that Epstein was just attracted to young girls and luring all of his friends to a party and entertaining them with young girls. No, we don't believe that. We believe that it was a honeypot. We believe that it was a honeypot state-sponsored, likely by Mossad and possibly by MI6 and maybe the CIA. I think probably by the CIA because a lot of it happened on American soil, and I just don't think you could have done that without the protection of our federal government, as we found out when Alex Acosta was being confirmed by the Senate, and he was asked why did he go light on Epstein, and he was told because he was intelligence. Now he didn't say whose intelligence, but he did say intelligence. So you add all those things up together, And where does it leave us? We have no confidence, little confidence in the truth and veracity of our federal government. With notable exceptions, I do believe President Trump tells the truth, mostly. I think he mostly tells the truth. I don't think he's lied to us about Epstein. I just don't think he's told us all the truth about Epstein. I don't think he's lied to us about who killed Kennedy. I think he just hasn't been forthcoming about who he thinks killed Kennedy. And I think he needs to. And allow the American people to have the information. We're not going to destroy the government. We're not going to call for the dismantling of the CIA. I'm not. I'm not going to call for the dismantling of the FBI. I'm just going to call for reform. I want the cancer removed. And there is evil, sheer evil in our federal government. There's evil in the United States Congress. Start with Eric Swalwell, the buffoon. I just like him so much. I like suppress it from my memory. Pencil neck. Censored by the Congress. But still, the people of California reelected him, but to the U.S. Senate. Adam Schiff. And then Nancy Pelosi. And what's his name? The guy who was Benny Thompson. Not Benny Thompson, somebody Thompson. The congressman that headed the Jan 6 so-called commission. And formerly Liz Cheney. These are bad people. No, I don't mean they're bad people. I mean they're bad people, evil people that don't mind destroying the lives of over 1,000 patriots under a false, made-up theater of a hearing that they conducted, and they imprisoned people for 3 years. Thank you, President Trump, as one of your first official acts for pardoning them and getting them out of jail, like Brandon Fellows, the 20-year-old who gave himself a tour of Statuary Hall. He didn't touch anything. He didn't destroy anything. He didn't even speak. He just gave himself a tour, and he was invited in by the Capitol Hill police. He walked up to the door. They held it open for him. And then they imprisoned him for 3 years for trespass and being part of an insurrection that never happened. They tried to ruin Roger Stone's life, prosecuting him for lying about something that never happened. That would be the Russian hoax. As Roger Stone has said on this program, how do you convict someone of lying about something that never happened? Where's the lie? Because the underlying predicate didn't exist. And so what do we as the American people demand? We demand accountability for the dastardly deeds. And it makes me mad as hell that our people in our own government could assassinate the 35th President of the United States. It makes me mad as hell that our own government could cover up the attempted assassination on Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, July the 13th, 2024. It makes me mad as hell. It really makes me disturbed that someone took the life of an American treasure, the smartest human being I ever met, the most devout Christian I ever have listened to, and a true patriot who really helped get Donald Trump elected. I don't know what happened in Utah at that college. I don't know. What was it? Something Valley College, University. I know they've got deep ties to the CIA there. Deep ties at the professor level. of CIA people. Did they have a hand in it? I don't know. But does it feel like more of the same? You bet. I'm sick of it. I want the evil surgically removed from our federal government. I want a country that is a country of laws that operate within the bounds of our United States Constitution and the laws of the United States. I would like a federal government that is ethical and moral. Is that too much to ask? Am I being naive? Am I being a conspiratorialist? I just think I'm being commonsensical. And I think that I'm looking after my 3 sons and my 2 grandchildren who are visiting us here in sunny South Florida this week. So happy to have them here for Easter. But I want them to have the American dream. I want them to live in a country where they can achieve the American dream. Well, there isn't going to be any American dream if we turn our heads and allow people that are engaging in illegal activities to get off the hook. And that's what's happening. That's what I feel like is happening in Minnesota. $30 billion in fraud. Where are the prosecutions? And like I said at the top of the show, if you think California's fraud is bad, listen to this report. It ain't 30 billion. It's a lot worse than that.
Manhattan Institute senior fellow Chris Rufo has been investigating widespread fraud in California. In a new report, he found that fraud losses during the Newsom administration totaled at least $180 billion. California Governor Newsom responded to that report, saying it relies on, quote, guesses. Newsom says California has been a leader on combating fraud. Chris Rufo joins us now. Chris, what's your response to Newsom's response?
Yeah, well, Gavin Newsom is definitely becoming associated with the word fraud, but it's not for fighting it, it's for enabling it. And look, even under the most conservative estimates, experts from Harvard, from the Department of Health and Human Services, from LexisNexis Fraud Division have told us that the fraud in California is unprecedented. It represents the largest financial crime in American history. And scammers have been stealing billions of dollars per year. Some estimates say as high as $50 or $60 billion a year from the state of California, from federal taxpayers who actually send money to the state. And so, look, this reputation is catching up with the governor. He's going to try to run away from it, but the facts are not on his side.
So there you have it. I mean, am I the only person on earth that sees that it's not Republicans in any of these states where fraud exists? Now, I'm not saying they're all ethical and without fraud. I know there are Republican exceptions. We could start in my former home state of Georgia. I don't trust Kemp, Raffensperger, and Carr as far as I can throw our new studio here in West Palm Beach. While I'm on it, let me remind you that it's sponsored by Bone Frog Coffee. We're honored to have Bone Frog Coffee as our studio sponsor. If you grind through the day like I do and need that perfect kick without the jitters, grab Bone Frog Coffee. It's veteran owned, founded by retired Navy SEAL Tim Cruikshank as a tribute to the fallen teammates in the Naval Special Warfare community. Each bag tells a story and gives a peek behind the curtain of special ops. If you don't already know, Bone Frog is a sacred symbol of the SEAL teams that represent those that gave the ultimate sacrifice and gave their lives in combat, and is a reminder of the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom and the American way of life. Every bag, premium, small batch roasted from top shelf Arabica beans. I'm going to nail that before it's over. Arabica beans, smooth, low acid, no Robusta junk. Think bold blends like Frogman Dark Roast or the classic Bone Frog Medium. Tastes like freedom in a cup. And here's the real deal. A chunk of every sale goes straight to helping SEAL vets and Gold Star families. Aiming for $500,000 donated. Coffee with a cause? Yeah, it's more than a slogan. It's brotherhood brewed daily. Now, if you want some Bone Frog coffee, you can snag some K-Cups, whole bean, or merchandise. Use the promo code TRUTH. Start your day like I do. Fuel up, stay sharp, and remember, service before self. Support our veterans and thank Bone Frog for sponsoring our studio. Check them out at www.bonefrogcoffee.com. I think you'll really enjoy it. Okay, so I posed a question a couple of weeks ago. Was J.D. Vance going to become the fraud czar like Kamala Harris was the border czar? I don't think so. Here is what Vice President Vance, we used to tweet it. Do we now X it? I don't think so. I think we still tweet, but on X. Our task force isn't wasting any time cracking down on fraud. This morning in the LA area, federal law enforcement is taking down fraudsters who stole $50 million from Americans by defrauding our healthcare and hospice systems. Okay, good. Progress. You took them down. I don't know what that means. How do you take them down? I guess you put them out of business, but that's not enough, Vice President Vance. It's not enough. And this is what is running through my head as I'm reading the copy on Bone Frog Coffee. And we're talking on one hand about Navy SEALs who have given their lives. Think about that. Think about what that means. Think about what it means if they were your son or daughter or brother or sister. And why did they do it? They did it for our freedom, for our safety, and our security. And you're telling me that we're going to let people that threaten our country from within to get off scot-free? Maybe a slap on the wrist? It's not good enough. It's got to stop. The only way to make it stop is to put those people in orange jumpsuits, put them on national television, handcuffed and shackled, doing their perp walk. Put them before the grand jury and prosecute them. And you can start with John Brennan, James Comey, and Clapper. Clapper, Brennan, Comey. And you know, I'm like Trump. I admired his restraint in not going after Hillary Clinton. But I'm over it. She's crossed the line. Authoring that Russia hoax and paying for it out of her own campaign funds with the complicit help of Perkins Coie and God only knows who else. I don't know whether they pulled the wool over Obama's eyes or not. It sounds like maybe they did. I can't tell for sure about that report. They pulled it from the security briefing that he got every morning. But then did they rewrite it and remanufacture it? I think they did. Doesn't matter. Maybe Obama, maybe not. I'm satisfied with Obama just to allow him to achieve irrelevance. It's fine with me if that's his penalty, I think. But Clinton, she's been in it. She's done too much. And if you wanted some insight into the Clintons, read Roger Stone's book, The Clintons' War on Women. It is very elucidating. And maybe it is time to investigate the Clinton Foundation. Maybe it is time to reveal to the American people the extent of their evil works. I think it might be. Well, I want you to stay tuned for the rest of the show because we've got some great interviews coming up. We've got Robert Bork. He is the son of the late Robert Bork. This is Robert Bork Jr. that's on the show. He's the president of the Antitrust Education Project. It sounds boring. Sounds boring as hell until you find out that there is a case pending right now that is designed to lower your concert and sporting events tickets, because Ticketmaster and Live Nation have assembled a monopoly in that space, and ticket prices are just shooting through the ceiling, and it didn't used to be that way. The only high price you paid was to scalpers, but now the artists are benefiting, I guess, or maybe it's just Ticketmaster and Live Nation that are really profiting in their shareholders. But that case is pending right now, and hopefully the result will be more fair pricing in entertainment and breaking up the monopoly. Competition will get the prices down. Bruce de Torres, he's an author and communications director at the American Small Business League. We had a great conversation about lies and fraud, JFK, 9/11, and COVID-19. I think you'll want to stay tuned for that. Today's broadcast is brought to you by Perfect Circle Renewable Energy. They're a restaurant services company. 100% of their waste vegetable oil that they collect from restaurants is refined and delivered to people that are making biodiesel fuel. So their product actually helps improve the air that people breathe within the 285 belt loop in Atlanta, because biodiesel fuel burns cleaner and it turns a waste product into a renewable energy product. It's a great alternative energy product, and Perfect Circle Renewable Energy is on the forefront of that. They have a big percentage of Atlanta restaurants. They've been around since the early 2000s. They'll clean your grease traps, collect your waste vegetable oil, clean your vent hoods. They'll also sanitize the front of the house and the back of the house. Check them out, www.perfectcircleenergy.com. They are the sponsor of today's broadcast, along with Bone Frog Coffee, the sponsor of our new studio here in West Palm Beach. What else do I need to tell you? I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm just going to ask you. I'm going to ask you, if you enjoy this broadcast, to please do me a teensy-weensy little favor. Help us expand our microphone. Forget YouTube. I'm done with it. They're throttling the hell out of us. But at Getter and Rumble and Facebook, we're alive and well. We are growing like a weed thanks to you on Getter. Please come to Getter and Rumble and subscribe to our show if you'd like to stay informed and know when we put up a different episode. We're putting out material all through the week in the form of podcast and on YouTube and Getter and Rumble and Facebook. So check out our reels. Like us if you do. Show them to your friends. Encourage them to subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost anything. It's all free. And I don't get anything from it. We do not monetize this. We're getting a little bit of our cost back with our sponsors. Thank you very much for that. But I promise you, it cost us a lot more to do the show than we take in revenue. I'm doing it because I love you. I love America. I want to keep us strong. I want to get back to an ethical and moral country, because that's the country I grew up in, where we went to church every Sunday. We watched Walt Disney on TV when it was a good family show, and we watched Lassie and Ed Sullivan, Andy of Mayberry. Those are the days that I yearn for. We can get it back. We can get it back. We just need to join hands and demand it. And if enough of us will do that, and it's going to start very soon with the midterms, just get ready. Put it on your calendar to go vote in the midterms. and use your influence with everyone you know to please go and vote. And you can tell Democrats to go vote. I'm fine with that. If we don't have election fraud, and if we have ethical, honest elections, I am fine with Democrats showing up and voting. I actually want them to. Because you get it right when you have a competition for ideas. And that's what we want. We want good outcomes in this country, and that requires all of us giving and taking equally. And I'm fine to give in to Democrats on issues that are important to them and are not harmful to our country or to my family. There can be give and take. There can be compromise. There can be coming to the middle. But where we have to draw the red line is on election fraud. Where we have to draw a red line is on anti-fraud. Because like President Trump said, if you eliminated the fraud inside the United States federal government, we would have no deficit. We would be able to pay down the deficit that we do have. It's worth it. And it's the right thing to do. And that's why it's so important for all of us to show up for the midterms and get ready. They'll be here before you know it. Get educated, figure out who you support and want to support, and let's get on the bandwagon to get the turnout there, just like we did in 2024. We did it then, we can do it again. All right, let's get to our first interview. Here is Robert Bork Jr. Do you like to go to concerts like I do? Well, just like that guy in New York who says the rent's too damn high, so are the ticket prices. And here to help us understand it is Robert Bork, son of the late Robert Bork, who was a nominee to the Supreme Court of the United States. You go by Robert or Bob?
You can call me Bob.
All right, Bob, welcome to The Truth. It's nice to have you. So you're the president of the Antitrust Education Organization, Education Project, I should say. And you've also authored a book, The New Paradox, Antitrust, and the Threat of Conservative Socialism. Riddle me that. Explain conservative socialism.
It's really, if you think about what conservatives have believed for a long time in smaller government, less regulation, more freedom. And then you look at what the Democrats, and particularly in the last 4 years in the area of antitrust, actually going back to the beginning of the Biden administration 5 years ago, what you have is a belief that government must have more control over business deals, mergers and acquisitions, business practices, and they believe that they should use the antitrust laws, which are designed to prevent monopolies or to punish monopolies. They believe that monopolies are bad, and that they believe business is bad. And they the Biden people wanted to push for more government involvement, more government regulation, more rules, and to use antitrust to basically punish business and to push for a new version of capitalism, which looked a hell of a lot like socialism. That actually attracted a lot of conservatives in Congress because they are so, in some extent, rightly angry at big business and big tech for censorship of their platforms. First with Twitter, and then also with even companies like Amazon and Meta. So they began moving closer in the direction of what the Democrats are doing and agreeing with them. I mean, J.D. Vance is what we call a conservative after Lena Khan, the Marxist head of the FTC in the last administration. So as they move closer to them and begin to adopt their views, that was, I think, a real threat to capitalism and a real threat to our antitrust enforcement regime that had been in place for almost 50 years, that was really more about the consumer and more and for more freedom and growth and job creation.
So where do you come down on this antitrust case? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. I'm worth interrupting sometimes when I get going.
No, that's all right. No, you're doing great. So where do you come down on this Live Nation and Ticketmaster case that is currently pending?
Well, first of all, before they even got sued by the federal government and 39 states, my general view was that they were a vertically integrated company and they provided value in the marketplace for tickets. But clearly there were problems with what triggered a lot of this was the big concert tour.
Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift.
Yeah. $1 billion in revenue.
Yes.
Holy cow.
People couldn't get tickets and they were paying a lot for tickets. And they began to look at Ticketmaster as being the problem. And then they began to look at Live Nation as being the problem. Live Nation is a venue, manages venues, and Ticketmaster sells tickets. So the federal government decided to bring a case at the end of the Biden administration. The Antitrust Division of the Justice Department, and they wanted to break up Live Nation Ticketmaster into at least two parts and maybe more, who knows. And then 39 states joined them. What happened, though, a couple of weeks ago was that the DOJ, the Department of Justice, and Live Nation made a settlement. And they did so I'll get into that in a second. They made a settlement to get out of the case with the federal government so that they could avoid getting broken up. And frankly, I think the settlement's a pretty good one for the government and for consumers. They have to, under the settlement, must now allow major competitors such as StubHub and SeatGeek, that's Ticketmaster, must allow these other ticket companies to sell tickets on the Ticketmaster platform through a special standalone process. So that brings them, more customers and decreases or creates more competition. And that open platform requirement, effectively blunts the advantages of the Ticketmaster Live Nation combination.
So are Live Nation and Ticketmaster owned by the same entity? Are they one
Live
and the
Nation,
same?
The parent company is now it's called Live Nation, and yes, they're the same company.
Right, and you said vertically integrated, so Live Nation has the venues and Ticketmaster has the tickets.
Right.
That does sound like pretty significant market power. I mean,
well, there's certainly market power, but
is there a place for antitrust in your view?
Yes, I think there's definitely a place for antitrust. To if you can find, let me just back up and say, there's nothing wrong with a monopoly. That maybe people are now screaming at their computer screens, but monopolies in themselves are not bad. It's how you got it, and then how you use it. Do you abuse your monopoly?
Exactly. Right. And they're run by human beings. And I think that part of the human condition is, we see it everywhere. Greed is ubiquitous right now.
Oh, don't make me go all Gordon Gekko on you.
Yeah.
I remember watching Milton Friedman talk about greed. He says, is there a system anywhere that doesn't run on greed? He said, do you think that at that time the Soviet Union doesn't run on greed? Of course it does. People try to maximize their personal wealth, their personal benefits, and You can call that greedy. You can call that perhaps just looking after your own business. But so Live Nation, Ticketmaster, have now agreed to open the platform for tickets. They also agreed to divest 13 amphitheaters that they own. And that loosens the connection between venues and ticket sales. And it must reserve 50% of tickets for non-exclusive venues, and it caps service fees at 15%. These are all the issues that people were complaining about.
The service fees kill you.
Yes.
My wife and I happen to really like music. And so even at our tender age of in our 70s, we go to a lot of concerts. And the Hard Rock Hotel in Fort Lauderdale, 40 minutes from where we live, has a constant stream of musicians and entertainers coming through. And it's one of the things we really enjoy. But I know they game the system, because what I have observed is that the day the tickets go on sale, they sell out within about an hour or 30 minutes, depending on who the artist is. But then a month later, more tickets mysteriously come on the market. So I think they're controlling the supply to maintain the price.
Are those tickets from the original from the venue, or are they StubHub and other sort of scalper companies?
Well, I think they're from the original venue, because they put these tickets out in tranches, has been my observation. And then if you're not Johnny on the spot, and I'm not, one of my New Year's resolutions is to stop my procrastination. But then I'm relegated to buying them on the aftermarket. And that's when you really get zinged on the price of the ticket and on the service charges.
Right. Well, I know the other day there was a Diana Krall concert here in Charlottesville.
Yeah, I saw Diana Krall right here in West Palm about a year or two ago.
Right. I was very late looking for tickets, and there were very, very few left. And I was going through the different seats on the chart, and then one of them was $13,000.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, I don't know what that was about.
I think that's just somebody chumming, just chumming the waters and see if somebody is crazy enough to bite. I like Diana Krall, but I don't like anybody $13,000 worth. I'll just watch them on YouTube and be done with it.
I'd go see the Beatles for $13,000, but unfortunately they don't exist anymore.
Well, I did see the Beatles in Los Angeles at their 50th anniversary reunion. I happened to be the oldest PA in America then. I worked for the Grammys, and they had 2 days after the Grammys, they always have a tribute to someone. So they had a tribute to the Beatles, and I was backstage, and it was a thrill to be there, I'm telling you. And Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr were there, and then George Harrison's son was there, and he is the spitting image of his dad. So it was a fun night, I'll tell you.
But just to finish up on this Live Nation Ticketmaster thing, so the settlement is in place. I think it's pretty good, which I don't usually say. I'm usually not so complimentary about the Justice Department, and certainly not about the antitrust enforcement at the FTC, and certainly not about Donald Trump's antitrust policies. But I think this turned out pretty well. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, the 39 states are continuing, and the judge is really mad at the Justice Department and Ticketmaster and Live Nation. So he could refuse the settlement. He has to approve it, and he could say no. And in the meantime, today the CEO of Live Nation is testifying in the ongoing trial. I'm not quite sure how it's going to turn out, but I don't think they're out of the woods legally. And I'm not sure that we're going to see the deal that was put together a couple of weeks ago actually survive.
So how did you get so focused on antitrust? And I mean, obviously it's something that you care an awful lot about because you're the president of the Antitrust Education Project. And what are you trying? What is your mission in educating people on what level?
Well, it's kind of personal with me. My father wrote, and some people say this is his most important work, wrote a book that was published in 1978 called The Antitrust Paradox, a policy at war with itself. And he taught antitrust at Yale Law School, and he practiced antitrust when we lived in Chicago when I was a young boy, at Kirkland and Ellis, and tried cases. But he didn't want to do that anymore. He was more of an intellectual, and he wanted to teach. So he was invited to teach antitrust at Yale, and was there for a number of years. Anyway, so the book came out in 1978. And it espoused this notion of the consumer welfare standard, that antitrust law really should be reduced to understanding what he thought its original purpose was, which was the consumer welfare. And he made a big case for it, lots of economics, lots of charts and graphs, and he taught himself calculus to do the book.
I'll be darned.
And interestingly, somebody had read the book, a lawyer who had a case before the Supreme Court, and put in his case this notion of the consumer welfare standard, and the Supreme Court ultimately ruled in his case in his favor 9-0, and made a point of adopting what they called the consumer welfare prescription, and that changed antitrust, and forever, well, maybe not forever, but for the last 46 years, it's been the sort of operating system of antitrust enforcement I'm sorry.
That's right.
You asked me why I got into this. So I began to see a few years ago that the left was attacking it rather vociferously. Elizabeth Warren, this Lena Khan, who was ultimately became FTC chair, and others. And I wondered if his book was around, and I discovered it was out of print. So I got the rights back from the publisher, and I republished it myself with new material, and then decided that wasn't enough. I wanted to get in there and defend his legacy, really, and created the Antitrust Education Project. And I've been doing this now for 4 or 5 years. And if you go to antitrusteducationproject.org, you'll see what we're about, and all the op-eds I've written, and other things that I've written there. Anyway, so it's free. For me, it's very personal. It was trying to protect and defend his legacy.
Well, your dad was a very conservative person, as I recall.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what side of the issue am I supposed to be on, because I too consider myself a conservative. So do conservatives like antitrust laws, or are we supposed to be opposed to them? I can, I was trained as a lawyer, so I can argue either side of that. I mean, we dislike big government and government intervention.
Right.
But we also like free trade and for the marketplace to determine the price of goods and services.
The consumer welfare standard is for you, because it really looks at antitrust and says, it was just enforced all wrong for almost a century. And my dad came along and looked at it, and he said it was a paradox. It was a policy that didn't work. It was a policy at war with itself. And he then offered the consumer welfare standard. It wasn't just him. Other people were talking about this too, but he wrote the book that brought it all together. The consumer welfare standard really puts the consumer, you and me and everybody else, at the center of enforcement. If you vote with your dollars, you vote with your feet, and that's what matters. And if you're happy with what you get from a particular company through a particular merger, if it doesn't harm the consumer, then the government should just lay off. But when harm comes, when they abuse their position in the marketplace, then the government should step in and bring cases that, they should apply that standard for making the decision about antitrust enforcement. And it's not Republican. That standard is not Republican. It's not Democrat. It's about the free market and letting consumers make their own choices.
Right.
The government, the Democrats, when they were in power, don't want the consumers making their own choices. They just like everything else, they want an industrial policy. They want to pick the winners and losers. They want to make decisions not based on consumer welfare or the consumer benefit and economics. They want to make the decision based on who their friends are, and
So they're weaponizing the antitrust laws.
They weaponized antitrust.
Yeah, and that's wrong. That's just flat out wrong.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the Trump administration is only a little different. Mm-hmm. They've used, first of all, when the Democrats came in, when Biden came in, he announced rather loudly that the consumer welfare standard was a mistake. Should never have happened.
That sounds typical.
Yes, and he made it personal because he basically mentioned my father, and that ticked me off. And then he ordered a whole of government approach to increase competition, which is one of their favorite phrases. They began bringing cases and losing cases. The courts, remember, were under the Supreme Court's precedent of the consumer welfare standard now, and so they just were rejecting these cases. But that didn't stop them; they kept going, and they started trying to figure out how to bring a case that they could win.
Well, I think you're highlighting what my problems have been over the years, not with the antitrust laws, but rather their application. Mm-hmm. And I remember vividly when when AT&T was split up, and the result was a dozen Bell companies, and I don't know. I don't know whether that helped the consumer or hurt them, but now they're putting the damn thing back together again. So which is it?
Where are they putting it back together?
Well, there's been a loosening of the laws, and I'm not really up on the current status, but my impression is that the Justice Department is allowing AT&T to acquire some of the Bell companies that they had to spin off years ago.
I was not aware of that move. I know that they opposed AT&T's acquisition of Time Warner and went to court to prevent that and lost. And I commented at the time that it was a huge mistake. They should let the marketplace work. It was a vertical merger. There was nothing in violation of antitrust law about it. And lo and behold, of course, antitrust, they won. AT&T merged with or acquired Time Warner, and then that deal didn't work out. In the marketplace, they couldn't make it work. AT&T knew nothing about how to run a content company, so they spun it off to Discovery, and it's been spun off again. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing, Warner Brothers Studio going to Paramount, which may as well. Actually, I don't think it'll have any problems because I think Trump is friendly with Paramount. So there's a lot of that going on in this administration too. It's what does Donald Trump think about the players in mergers and acquisitions? Does he have friends? Are they, for example, the reason he brought the AT&T Time Warner prosecution was because Time Warner owned CNN and he hated CNN, so they sued them. Anyway, I'm going far afield.
Politics, it messes stuff up, doesn't it?
It sure does.
I think so.
That's why I live here now. I'm sick of it.
Well, listen, thank you for carrying on your father's legacy. He certainly left you with a very good name, and I for one am glad you're putting it to good use. And it's just a pleasure and an honor to have had you on The Truth today. Thank you for joining us.
I hope it was interesting and not too confusing about all this antitrust stuff.
Well, it is an esoteric area of the law, and one that is fraught with confusion, I think, from a lot of people. And so I appreciate your giving us a glimpse behind the curtain. It's been very educational.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
I might be the only person in America who thinks that fraud is pervasive and it surrounds us. Well, maybe not the only one. Bruce DeTorres, he's been on The Truth before. Welcome back, Bruce.
Great to be here, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. I don't know, Bruce. I'm kind of spun up this morning, frankly. I woke up at 3:30, went back to sleep, and then reawoke at 4:30. So I don't know. I may have gotten up on the wrong side of the bed. But there's a lot that's really making me grouchy right now. And we can start with the fraud that seems to be pervasive within our system. Well, within our culture and our system of government, most disturbing. The people that are supposed to protect us from fraud seem to be the very ones that are participating, if not leading, the fraud. And it's making me like that man in that movie. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Your thoughts?
You are justified to see things that way. And the more one digs into history, one finds it has ever been thus. And we need to have the courage to look at that severely, to transcend it and overcome it and balance that with life. What's life? Well, life is living things, procreating and blossoming and reproducing, and it goes on, no matter the foibles of mankind. And now we can tell ourselves we are adults who can handle the truth and comfort the young and the innocent who are devastated by discovering there is no Santa Claus, okay? And we are surrounded by such corruption, and those in power tend to abuse that power, and it can seem hopeless. And that's where we who can handle it have to have these kind of conversations. The vast majority of the good of which is, I'm not alone in seeing things this way. No, you're not. And together we can get through it and imagine solutions and actually have a good time.
Well, so I didn't understand the first words out of your mouth. Did you say it's always been this way, or did I misunderstand you and maybe you said it's never been this way? I don't know.
It has always been this way.
Always. So have we been ignorant to that fact?
No, if it comes as a shock, it's because, personally speaking, my childhood was in the 60s and 70s.
Me too.
And there was enough of the idealism back then, even in school. On the front of every classroom, there was George Washington, the American flag, and Abraham Lincoln. So I ingested and loved the ideals of the American founding, and for a number of years really indulged the idea that we're the good guys and everything's gonna work out okay. But then upon reflection, and you grow up and you realize, oh no, there's a great subterfuge being inflicted on us. Things are this corrupt. We're at a stage right now where every day I think we have to expect catastrophic collapses, either organically because corrupt, rotten, brittle things collapse, or also manufactured crises can be inflicted on us to control us, terrify us, and let the inflictors greatly profit from it in literal false flag attacks where we are attacked by the people who are supposed to protect us, and it's blamed on an external enemy to justify going to war and all these horrible things. Did that make sense to your question, John?
Well, it does. It seems like a little bit of a roundabout answer. I shared with you before we came on. I'm from the Midwest. I'm pretty direct and to the point, but that's okay. You wrote a book, God, School, 9/11, and JFK. Now, I don't know what inferences to draw from that. Tell us a little bit about the book and where you're coming from.
Well, sure. The subtitle says, the lies that are killing us and the truth that sets us free. So what I show in the book are the official stories of many, many things to be lies. Mm-hmm. And the truth that sets us, first of all, knowing who's really hurting you is a great help. That sets us free so that we don't accept, quote unquote, protection by the forces and people who actually inflicted the harm and then blamed another. So we're not played for fools and suckers at that level. And then there's a greater truth that sets us free, which is existential and it's spiritual. It's the nature of reality. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning, that life is living, and I say it's eternal. And with the right intentions of being part of solutions and helping and loving each other, we can overcome anything and we can create whatever we want.
Well, I would be very interested to know who you think is the boogeyman here, because I've been looking. I've been trying. I can't find the curtain, let alone who's behind it.
Wow, that is a very direct and accurate portrayal of much of modern life. We are confused intentionally. We are fire hosed. Every version of every event, the intention is to keep us confused so we don't know what to believe. The evildoers or the perpetrators are the richest of the rich. These are old families. These are old institutions. And especially here in America, we are betrayed and hurt and controlled and abused by those forces which, for all intents and purposes, have captured our government, our media, our health institutions, the pharmaceutical companies, the giant corporations that really provide everything that we need and are also doing it for maximum profit, which is equal to maximum injury to us. It's comprehensive. The people we see on the stage, presidents, politicians, senators, congressmen, are colluding with that mostly. A lot of them are aware of this and are trying to speak the truth and reveal things and do well for us. If they really start to help us and reveal a lot of truth, they're destroyed, they're demonized, they're driven from office, or they're driven off the road.
Who would you be referring to?
Well, you could look at, I was no particular fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene, but the way that she was bullied out of office is a very current example.
You and I have a lot in common, Bruce. I know Marjorie Taylor Greene. I've known her for 8 years, maybe 9. I sat with her at Mar-a-Lago in 1917, maybe 18.
2017 or 18.
Yeah, what did I say?
You said 1917.
Well, that's because I'm old. That's my frame of reference.
You're not that old.
2017 or 2018, and she was feisty then. It was just her and I and about 4 other people. We were dialing for dollars for President Trump's re-election campaign that had just been kicked off for 2020, and she was not a warm or empathetic individual, and I frankly, my first instinct was I don't like her, and my second instinct was you need to get to know her better. So I've gotten to know her better and confirmed that my first instinct was absolutely correct. It is, when I was a kid, I grew up in the church. I was there most days of the week and the majority of the hours in the week. I was there Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning, all day until noon, then lunch after church, at the church, and then I would come back for MYF on Sunday night, and then I was back on Wednesday nights for the Wednesday night supper with my folks. So I spent a lot of time in the church. And the youth leader there was one of my absolute heroes in life because I was a very gangly, awkward, thin, uncoordinated nerd. and I got my share of abuse, he was always so nice to me and always so encouraging to me. And so I was kind of his right hand. I filled up the Coca-Cola machine with drinks. I swept the floor and mopped the back room. And and his wife worked there as well. She taught pottery. She made ceramics. Just a wonderful, fine couple who made an indelible impression on me. And I aspire to be as good a person as those two people were. Anyway, my point is he was a good study of human nature. And I had a friend named Ken who worked there with me. There were 8 or 10 of us that worked at the youth center. And Ken was a very smart, brilliant guy, even at a young age, and very full of himself. And so Mr. Ayers used to say to Ken, you're a great guy, but you got a disease. And Ken would look at him and say, what do you mean, Mr. Ayers? And he said, well, you've got this disease. It's called I-itis. And it stuck with me. It really made an impression on me. I never wanted to have I-itis because there's not a cure for it. The cure is to live life, and it'll beat the hell out of you until you accomplish the art of achieving and acquiring humility. I tell my kids all the time, life will humble you. It's better just to be humble. It's a lot easier, I can promise you. So that was a long explanation just to say that Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I tried to like, I do admire her values, but as a person, she's just unlikable if you know her on any kind of a personal level. I followed Ben Franklin's advice. He said, I don't like that guy. I need to get to know him better. And so I tried to get to know her better. And the more I learned, the more I confirmed my first impression. She's just not a nice person.
But you know what I take from that?
She has got the right principles. She's got the right guiding light.
Yeah, the I-itis and her success in her, in politics is typical or for success in a hierarchy. And one could argue that through school and into politics, one with a severe case of I-itis can rise to a top by elbowing others out of the way. But at the end of the day, who loves you? Who thinks you're a nice, wonderful person? And those are profound questions for every individual.
Well, that's a conversation I'd love to have with you because I wrestle with that in my daily life all the time. Is it self before others, or is it others before self? And then you have to stop and ask the question, what's the win? If you put yourself before others and you win, what have you won? A legion of enemies. I'm not sure that that's the right goal. Anyway, we're straying far afield, but I'm liking it. I'm enjoying it, Bruce. Thank you for indulging me. I've drawn this crude map. Anthony, where do you want to display it? Where can I show it? Right here?
Yeah.
Now, I am not an artist. I flunked math. But I'm just thinking about,
there you go.
That is my depiction. I just wrote this out while you were talking.
Bring that more center, please, because half of it's off the page.
That is my crude depiction of the United States.
Okay. All right.
That is my depiction of the United States. I'm down here where my index finger is.
I understand. Sure, special interest, intelligence.
Yeah. I look at you. We were trying to decide who is the boogeyman.
Right.
Who is after us? And so it's easy to identify China, Iran, Russia. I put dotted lines between Canada and Mexico. I don't think they're really after us. I think they're just greedy and they want to leech off of us as much as they can. It would be better if, and that's what, here's the thing. It just hit me with a ton of bricks. President Trump said this morning, the EU will not assist in the fight that we're in with Iran. So we've got these forces that are coming at us from outside of our country. And it's very hard to distinguish whether the things that are happening to us that are bad, like you alluded to, it's always a foreign entity. And is it subterfuge to cover up who the real villain is? So I drew in this inside the country. I'm going to do a better job of this because it's brilliant. There goes my humility. It is absolutely a brilliant depiction of what we're talking about. Special interest, intelligence, law enforcement. You can put minorities on that page, like the Somalians in Minnesota and California, that are the primary sponsors of fraud, so we're led to believe. And, I've just gotten to the point where I see all this stuff. I'm not ignorant about it. And it just gets you to a point that I question everything. This guy just quit the National Intelligence Organization saying that Iran was not the threat that we have been told that it is.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here saying, but of course it is. Of course the Ayatollah Khomeini took 54 U.S. hostages and kept them for over 2 years. Of course they are evil. And then you go back and you dig a little further and you realize that it was not out of a quest for power or leveraging. It was revenge. It was a settling of the score. So I don't know. Can you sort it out, Bruce? I'm getting myself really confused.
Well, kudos to care about all these things, John, and that's how we'll, together, humanity, we can grow up towards some understanding by comparing notes about what do you know, what do you know, what do you know, what do you think, what have you heard, and that's how it's done. And your map is valuable because to know ourselves and our own intentions and reality is the first step. Okay, so you've got law enforcement, you've got intelligence and things like that. I would say that 90% of our challenge is to understand internally and domestically, who's working for life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness here and who is not. And before I would list any foreign country as our enemy or a threat, let's pin that and say we can look at that. The sad reality is the United States government has barely worked for us since at least World War II. The presidency of John F. Kennedy was an anomaly. That was a short but blazing opportunity and great light that appeared. The authenticity of President Kennedy and how he wanted to use the government to empower, to unleash freedom, not only in America, so that we could prosper, but also around the world and steer us toward a planet of peace, has been gone with the wind since 1963. And yes, question everything.
I happen to agree with you.
As do so many observers and folks who were alive through that, and they've seen what the country has been since him, right?
I call it the day America lost its innocence. And I truly do believe that. The only hesitation I have is that for me, that's kind of where life really began, in terms of understanding what the world is really like. I was 10 years old. I had a mostly idyllic childhood. I had two parents that absolutely loved me and were good parents. They did not spare the rod.
Yeah, but they wanted to wake you up.
If I stepped out of line, I got whacked. Well, not bad, but
well, enough to make you question why that happened, and to hear the lesson they're trying to.
Enough to make me respect my parents' rules and the limits that they set. Yeah. And most of them were for my safety. So, but that day, my listeners are tired of hearing it, but I was home from school with the flu. I'd been home for 3 days. My fever broke. I woke up at noon. I consciously thought to myself at 10 years old, if you don't get your butt out of bed, you're never going to feel better. So I got up, got dressed, walked down the stairs to the family TV, and my mom was sitting there, as I knew she would be, because she watched As the World Turns every day at 1 o'clock. And as I pitter-pattered down the stairs, she said, "John, come and sit next to me." And I thought, okay, Mom's missed me while I've been in bed with the flu. But there was something in her voice that was foreboding, and I sat next to her. I said, "Mom's everything okay?" She said, "No, son, the president has been shot." To this day, I remember the emotion, the state of utter confusion that I felt, not being able to assimilate what those words meant. I didn't know anything about murder, life and death. I mean, I at that point, I had lost my grandfather, but that was the only person that I had lost in life that was close to me. And life and death was not a subject that I pondered or was, but it was a shocking cold reality that someone in the most despicable manner possible, with ruthlessness and complete abandonment for the dominoes that it put in place, the impact that it had, not only on the deceased and his wife sitting next to him. So for 64 years, 63, 62, 63, I've studied JFK's assassination. And I've pondered everything.
Have you found the work of Dr. David Mantik?
I have not.
Well, briefly, he has studied the evidence in the National Archives more than anybody. And for decades, he's been showing, by analyzing the X-ray films there, how they've been altered. And he has long made an ironclad case that not only was Kennedy hit in the throat, hit in the back, that's 2 shots.
Yeah.
He was hit simultaneously in the head by 3 bullets. So he was in a crossfire.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind.
Right. And the shooters were put into position by the same types of forces that that staged the Gulf of Tonkin to justify the Vietnam War, that staged 9/11 and blamed Muslims. That was an inside job. And it's the same horrible forces that inflicted the fraud of COVID-19 on us and filled many bodies with a bioweapon called a vaccine. Talk about being humble. In the face of these discoveries, John, one must completely question every word that comes from corporate media, corporate politicians, and get right with your maker and get right with your goals and intentions, and the need to be an adult who can look at the truth, talk about the truth, and talk about what we want, which is peace and love and prosperity, and to just see how the United States government does not work for us, and only we could turn that around.
Everything you just said, I agree with. Intellectually, 99.999, just take it all the way out to the extreme, convinced that our own government killed John Kennedy. And it was for power, and it was for greed, and it was also out of covering his own butt. In the case of Lyndon Baines Johnson, it was survival for him. It was also power. I've read a lot. I will go find David Mantik, I assure you. But Roger Stone, David Talbot, Douglas, all those books come to the same conclusion, and the evidence is overwhelming. I have been less willing to go down the rabbit hole on 9/11 until I've just stumbled on a YouTube video with former Congressman Kirk Weldon, who forced me to look at Building 7 and its implosion. And so now I've gotten a new obsession, and I've been looking at that. I really consciously don't want to look at 9/11 because I have an inkling of where it's going to lead me, and I don't know that I have the ability to live with that knowledge. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
To live with the knowledge that 3,500 people may have lost their lives based because of action that our own government was somehow complicit in? I don't know that I can stomach it. I don't know that I have the constitution or the ability to receive the news. And I think that a lot of people probably on some level, I've never really articulated it that way until now, but I think that that's probably why a lot of people stay in denial, because it's just too damn painful to look at the reality. But I want to ask you, the other thing I have kind of suspected but refused to look at is COVID. Was it intentional? Was it unleashed on us?
I'm convinced. I was able to write a chapter called COVID-19 during 2020, the first year of COVID, before my book came out the following spring. And I've continued to look at it and all these things. And the COVID-19 project and what they did with the vaccines, John, is the biggest and most horrendous crime against humanity that I can contemplate with all the history that I know, going back to whatever I know of antiquity and beyond. And there's so much in antiquity that we don't know. There are clues as to how advanced civilizations used to exist before the Egyptians, before the Babylonians. But to just with what's on human record, the Holocaust of harm, injury, death, and ongoing, probably irreversible damage to human reproduction, the sicknesses and the illnesses and the deaths continue to blossom from those who got the injections. And remnants of the shots are found in the placentas, if not the newborns of adults who got the shots 3, 4, 5 years ago. And it's part of an unbelievably evil, insane agenda by the powers that be that did these type of things, that are hand in hand with the transhumanism, the merging with machines, the development of AI. They're very sick hell on earth that they're inflicting, because psychologically, and I'll try and be very direct and brief with this, because they hate life, they can't accept that. It's the psychological process of projection. So they want to die. You can't admit that to yourself consciously. So it's easy for them, quote unquote, to think others are the enemy. They're the ones who are threatening me. So I'm going to kill them or destroy them. And it's part of that sick hierarchical competitive too. If I'm on top, you can't hurt me. I'm going to crush you. So that's the hellscape of the minds of the World Economic Forum and the Peter Thiels and the Yuval Hararis and the Klaus Schwabs and the George Soroses and all their disgusting minions, like the Clintons and the Bushes, who facilitate this for only evil purposes. I see a new picture.
I just amended it as you were speaking, and I inserted globalist, but they're both inside the borders and outside the borders.
Appropriately so.
I feel we are under attack from every direction, and I find myself being naive and wishful. In the words of Rodney King, can't we all just get along? I mean, could we call a world meeting of leaders and say, okay, Russia, this is your part of the world. China, this is your part of the world. U.S., this is our part of the world. All nuclear weapons are going to be disposed of today. You live as you want to live. You live as you want to live, and allow us to live as we want to live. We're not going to meddle inside your country. You're not going to meddle in ours. Why can't the world be balanced that way?
Because enough of us don't want that, but it's our job or opportunity to talk about those kind of things. By the way, that's a very accurate description of the world envisioned by the proponents of the American system of economics, which was formulated by Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, developed by Henry Clay, Henry C. Carey, Abraham Lincoln, William McKinley, FDR, and John F. Kennedy. Alexander Hamilton's American system of economics, whereby governments implement policies that allow the people to develop the natural resources and their own domestic economies, their own domestic manufacturing and trade, so they can be strong and defend themselves against any other country. They can't be attacked and be conquered by an empire. And the best proponents of that, John, push that out to Germany and Japan in the 1800s and push that out to Russia in the 1800s. And they were our allies. And Britain primarily drove the destruction of those countries in order to perpetuate its system of empire, the thing we rebelled against in the American Revolution, which is, I'm bigger and stronger than you. I'm just going to sit on your country, crush you, extract your natural resources, prevent you from developing manufacturing with the latest science and technology. But the alternative is what you just described. When every country develops its own resources for its own wealth and empowerment, they'll largely be self-sufficient, and then trade with the world will be kind of a bonus. But no country will be strong enough to conquer another. One of the amazing discoveries about John F. Kennedy's presidency, which people can find in my book, and I highly recommend it, read all about it at brucethetourist.com, is that in the last year of his life, 1963, he was not only working for controlling nuclear weapons, he was talking about general and complete disarmament. He was talking about the world you just described.
And you know who wanted to be his partner in that?
Khrushchev.
Nikita Khrushchev. The worst person on earth if you listen to our media and our own government. But Kennedy and Khrushchev actually, and I'm not telling you, you know it, they developed a relationship, and they actually liked one another, and they both had the goal of nuclear disarmament. And a lot of people speculate that that's what got Kennedy killed, because they were starting to make progress towards it.
And these are ideals worth nurturing. These are things worth espousing and talking about. And we have to believe good things will happen when enough people know and enough people want these things. And we have to generate this kind of hope for the succeeding generations. You know, when you were talking about not wanting to look at 9/11, and it was visceral, the effect that it was going to have on you, John, and it does have on you. I pictured the spirit of your father next to you with his hand on your back saying, "It sucks, but we have to tell ourselves we can handle the truth."
100%. And that is sage advice to leave our audience with. Thank you so much, Bruce. God, School, 9/11, and JFK. You can find it at brucethetourist.com. And it has just been a pleasure to have you back on. And if you would be willing, I'm going to have you back on more often. I'd forgotten just how much I enjoyed your company from our last visit.
It'd be a privilege and an honor. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And that is the truth. I'm John Gordon. We're honored to have Bone Frog Coffee as our studio sponsor. If you grind through the day like I do and need that perfect kick without the jitters, grab Bone Frog Coffee. It's veteran owned, founded by retired Navy SEAL Tim Cruikshank as a tribute to the fallen teammates in the Naval Special Warfare community. Each bag tells a story and gives a peek behind the curtain of special ops. If you don't already know, Bone Frog is a sacred symbol of the SEAL teams that represent those that gave the ultimate sacrifice and gave their lives in combat, and is a reminder of the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom and the American way of life. Every bag, premium, small batch roasted from top shelf Arabica beans. I'm going to nail that before it's over. Arabica beans, smooth, low acid, no Robusta junk. Think bold blends like Frogman Dark Roast or the classic Bone Frog Medium. Tastes like freedom in a cup. And here's the real deal. A chunk of every sale goes straight to helping SEAL vets and Gold Star families, aiming for $500,000 donated. Coffee with a cause? Yeah, it's more than a slogan. It's brotherhood brewed daily. Now, if you want some Bone Frog coffee, you can snag some K-Cups, whole bean, or merchandise. Use the promo code TRUTH. Start your day like I do. Fuel up, stay sharp, and remember, service before self. Support our veterans and thank Bone Frog for sponsoring our studio. Check them out at www.bonefrogcoffee.com. AI is all over the news and in every facet of our life, it seems like these days. And we're just so pleased to have Winton Hall with us. He is an associate of the Government Accountability Institute, who we have been fortunate to have many of your colleagues on The Truth with us. Winton, welcome, and let's talk about AI.
Thank you, John. Appreciate being with you.
So how did you get so in tune with this subject? And you've written a book, and I bet you it's going to be a bestseller by the time you're done with it. And
thank you. Yeah, we just found out this week, actually, that it hit the New York Times bestseller list in its opening week.
Code Red.
I've served for over 10 years as Breitbart News social media director, and Breitbart News has the second highest engaging social media platform behind Fox News for conservative news. And what happened was, John, I started seeing what big tech was doing to conservative voices, the scan and ban technology that was used to silence, demonetize, deplatform, delist conservative news, President Trump himself during the whole questions over election integrity. And so I realized what these people were up to and how sophisticated they were. And then, of course, when we had in November of 2022, the front-facing arrival of ChatGPT, I realized very quickly that these two forces were going to come together. And so what I tell people is we think of AI as, quote, just a tool. It is a tool, but it's also political power. And so I spent 2 years, as we do at GAI, it's always deep dive, follow the money, granular research. And I spent 2 years investigating who are the architects of AI, what are their money flows, what are their ideologies, and what is their vision for AI beyond just a tool, but using it for political power.
Well, you really just ripped off a scab that we're still trying to heal from. YouTube throttles us like crazy. I mean, we've been on YouTube for 3 years. We'll get several thousand views of a video clip, but we've only got like 1,700 subscribers. We've been on Getter 2 months, and we've already gotten almost 3,000 subscribers. And I kept thinking that we just must not be getting the right formula, that it must be something on our end that we're doing wrong. And then when we had such rapid success, relatively, we're nowhere near where we want to be, obviously, but we're climbing the rungs on the ladder slowly but surely. It just hit us like a ton of bricks. YouTube is sabotaging us. Is there a remedy for that?
Yeah, so when you say YouTube, you're really saying Google.
Yeah,
which means
for sure.
You're really saying Alphabet.
Yep.
And the problem is this.
And
is
you're really saying
false
left liberal hacks.
1,000%. Google is one of the most extreme and aggressive offenders. They have targeted to demonetize conservative right of center media. They absolutely shadow ban and have blacklisted and demonetized and push you down in the algorithm for sure.
Yeah.
It is a real problem. And if you think it's bad now, just wait until you realize how turbocharged it is in the age of AI. I'll give you an example. When we launched Code Red, part of that, I did a deep dive investigation on Google's AI, Google Gemini, and I did a deep research. And here's what happened. We smashed a hornet's nest in the US Senate. I did an investigation. I asked Google Gemini, assess the current 100 US senators and tell me who is in violation of your, quote, hate speech policies for Google Gemini.
Wow.
I know this is going to shock you, John. That basically 7 U.S. senators, it says, are bigots in violation of their hate speech policies. All Republicans, 0 Democrats. Then, on top of that, it hallucinated, meaning made up information, and thought that J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio were still in the Senate instead of the vice president and the Secretary of State, and it added them as bigot number 8 and number 9. Now, this wasn't just one little return. This was a 3,400 word, highly well-crafted analysis. So I went to Marsha Blackburn, Senator Blackburn. We went to Senator Tom Cotton. We went to Senator Rick Scott here, my senator in Florida. And we asked them for comment, and they were outraged.
Well, I'm outraged, but I'm unfortunately not terribly surprised. I mean, you know, I can't get my hands around it. You know, these people are not stupid. They're actually really brilliant people, but they have stupid ideas. And do they not care what kind of a country their children and grandchildren are going to grow up in when the socialist communists take over our country and change the fundamental fabric of what made it the great country that it is?
It's much worse than being stupid. They're drunk on their own power. They're masters of the universe and they know it. They have more money than the Treasury Department and the ability to knock people's lights out politically. These are brass knuckle players. These are very sophisticated political operatives. They understand the brass knuckle style of today's modern political warfare, and they're not afraid to use their power. They control the money flow in Washington. They control the donations. It's 85% of all political donations in Silicon Valley flow to the Democratic Party. Okay, and so they know what their leverage and their ability, and so they're just unafraid. They have very, very determined globalist, socialist vision of what they want to do, and they believe that they are far more powerful than the federal government because they're faster, they're smarter, they're ahead of the tech curve, and they know that the modern economy works and runs on technology. So they're drunk on power. It's hubris more than stupidity that drives them.
Have you been able to get inside their head and understand what drives them? I mean, I get the motivation, but I mean, what's the end game for them? If they could craft the world, and start with our country, what would it look like? What is it that they want to achieve? Because I really don't get it. I like the way the country has been for the last 250 years.
Yeah, they have a very radical left agenda. They believe in a far more left center of values on a host of issues. But they want a European-style socialist country is what they want. They want to see America become far more like Europe than the other way around. They also think that MAGA voters or conservatives' values are backwards on things like LGBTQ, transgender issues, and a host of other policy issues. And they are throwing their weight around. I'll just give you a couple of examples also as it relates to how they're going to use AI to actually bring about what they want. So in 2016, a young man, he was in his early 30s, he went on a blog, his blog, it's still up, the post is still up. And he wrote and he said, I want to do a study. I want to give away $1,000 a month, no strings attached to low-income people. And I want to see what will happen. Will they use it for leisure time? Will they create new businesses? Will they just blow it on, silliness? And he kept his word, and he raised $60 million, okay? $60 million, John. This was the largest universal basic income study ever conducted in American history. It was a longitudinal study. He chipped in 14 million of his own, and then he raised 60 million. And they did this study for several years. Now, the outcome was a mixed bag. Some people went to the dentist more. Some people did a little more leisure. That wasn't what really was striking. What was striking was what he said was the reason why he wanted to do this study. It was two reasons. One, he said that, and I'm paraphrasing, he thinks in the future technology is going to require wealth redistribution, a socialist style universal basic income. And two, he said he thought we will one day think it was silly that we ever used fear of not eating as motivation for human flourishing and work. Now, you and I would call that the Protestant work ethic, the thing that has motivated people to strive and work and provide for their wife and child and husband and family. And he was wanting to snap the hinge of that to create a post-labor, post-capitalist frame. That young man's name is Sam Altman. He is the CEO of OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT. Now, here's the tell, John. That study was conducted in 2016, as I reveal in Code Red. When did ChatGPT come out?
About then.
November 2022.
Oh, wow.
He's thinking about wealth redistribution and socialist redistribution in UBI 6 years before he releases the most important AI invention at the time, revelation. So this is a very, now he's not alone, by the way. Mark Zuckerberg, Dustin Moskovitz, a whole host, Bill Gates, obviously. These are far left people who have a very, very clear vision of a post-labor, post-capitalist society, and they know that AI has the ability, if leveraged and politically weaponized, to bring it to fruition.
That's not a very bright prediction for the future, is it?
No, but we've got to get coached up fast because they know how far ahead they are. They've been thinking about planning, building, investing in this vision for a long time. And sadly, many conservatives just aren't in the room where the future and the current is being built. Yes, there are some brave, libertarian, conservative-minded free market people in Silicon Valley. Obviously, Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, Peter Thiel. But the reality of the bulk, as we talked about, is political donations are overwhelmingly one-sided. And so they're the richest people on the planet, the smartest people in the rooms, and they've got all the leverage in Washington because they are the chief donors who flood the campaign coffers. So what's the solution is, one, to realize there are going to be positives of AI. And this book is not a doomer apocalypse book. There's a lot of benefit that we can have in many ways from AI. The problem is understanding that they're playing 5D chess and they are politically focused on AI and how to use it for leverage. So we got to get coached up. We got to know the lexicon and grammar and syntax of this world, not at a technical level. You don't have to be a coder. You don't have to understand neural networks at a granular level. But what you do need to understand is the core concepts and who are these people? Most of us know who Bill Gates is. Most of us know who Mark Zuckerberg is. But how many people know who Demis Hassabis is? How many people know who Mustafa Suleiman is? How many people know the donation histories of Dario Amodei at Anthropic and the fact that Anthropic has given $200 million since just 2020 to Democrats? Okay, these are very sophisticated political operatives, and we have to understand the game they're playing.
Well, I have been an advocate for a long time. I mean, the system has gotten distorted, and I just had a conversation with somebody else before you came on about what I perceive our culture has adopted a love for money, and the Bible says that is the root of all evil. I just thought it was money. I was talking to my preacher one day, and he said, "Oh no, it's not money. It's the love of money," and it seems to have inflicted every fabric of our society, including the churches, which now have inordinately large endowments and money at their disposal. And so I'm a capitalist, and I've worked my butt off to try and acquire and save and invest. So I'm not opposed to that at all. But do you feel like that it has distorted the way we look at things and the way that we view the world? And has it become a cultural problem that we've got?
Yeah, I think it's money. I also think it's power and a lust for power. And those obviously go hand in hand. Yeah. Money becomes power and power becomes money. And so there are two sides of the same coin. I think that the other thing is that there is such a focus on, an attention economy with social media. And I think the celebrity and glorification and validation for attention it becomes a part of this toxic brew as well. And so you've got people who are able to get very rich, very young. Most Silicon Valley elites, these are people that made $1 billion before they were 30. I mean, they're not the old school industrial age of some, oil baron who worked in the fields for decades. And I mean, in their 20s, they're getting, stock options and IPO and all the rest and their valuation. So these are people that don't have a lot of life experience, maybe don't have a lot of wisdom that we gain through the trials of life and learning the hard way. but they've got more money than they know what to do with. And so you're right. It becomes very, very tempting and toxic.
Well, you know, you mentioned Elon Musk a minute ago. He started out to be being a Democrat. He didn't convert to Republican conservative thought until relatively late in the game. Do you think there's hope for the rest of them?
I think there are some who will come to it, but I think that Peter Thiel famously said that Silicon Valley is a one-party state, and there is such a monoculture within big tech circles that even just to be able to be accepted as a peer, as someone you'll do deal flow with, you have to almost show your country club card, metaphorically speaking, of ideology. And so you have to have shown up to all of the woke events and given your $50,000 donation or your $150,000 donation, whatever it was, just to even be part of that deal flow orbit, almost like a little country club. And so you probably have some quiet, sort of closet conservative or libertarian minded people, but they actually kind of mute themselves because they know that it will be uncouth if they start to speak out, and that could risk their business deals.
So how do we get people motivated to come out at the midterms? I'm really growing anxious about the Republicans' chances. I mean, I thought it was going to be a slam dunk. We got Donald Trump as president. Elon Musk was going to doge the hell out of the federal bureaucracy, and we were going to pass all sorts of legislation that would solidify our conservative base, and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi would clean house in the deep state, and we'd get this country back together. What is going on? And bring us back. Where's our optimism?
Yeah, and right now there's a feeling of an emotional doldrum, and at the election, the left has got all the energy. They've got all the momentum. I'm seeing that as somebody who looks at analytics on social media all day long. The left is going viral every day. They're high-fiving. They think it's in the bag. I think that, one, obviously the war is very concerning to a lot of conservatives on a lot of levels. I think the other thing, too, is that we've really gotten off those kitchen table issues that really got us here. And because of that, there's just not enough media oxygen to be able to divvy that up. And so I think tonight you're going to hear the president start to really give us a end of this war and winding it down. And then really hopefully shift back to the things that people care about: affordability, making sure gas prices come and stay low, healthcare costs, just the prices in general on things. And I think that's his sweet spot. I think when he's talking about that, about keeping our families and communities safe, and about giving us a better option for our kids in a future, we're winning. And the question is going to be, will there be enough money to compete with the, left coffers that are very, very focused on winning the House and Senate and in the midterms? And they know that historically the out party always does much better in that midterm. So we're going to have to see about that, I think, but it's really we got to tack back to the sort of bread and butter issues.
Winton Hall, thank you for coming on The Truth Today. He is an author. He is a principal at Government Accountability Institute, our new best friends. And get his book, Code Red: How AI is Shaping the Political Discourse in Our Culture Today. Winton, it's been a pleasure of having you on. And where do people follow you?
Thank you, John. Yeah, just Winton, Wynton Hall on X Twitter. And there is a AICodeRedBook.com website, but everybody can get it at Amazon is both where people are getting it. And thanks for having me on.
It was our pleasure. Thank you, and come back again real soon.
Yes, sir.